So I titled this appropriately that we just can't stay quiet about this movie. I know it's kind of corny to say that, but um, yeah, A Quiet Place Day One. We were both big fans of the first two.
Mm,
The original Quiet Place movie is one of my favorite movies that I've seen in the last decade, probably.
mm,
Um, I don't do horror, so that's about the closest I can get to it.
yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
but yeah, just I don't know, a really self-contained story about family and loss and grief and learning to survive amongst all of that in a world where you're being stalked by these creatures that hunt by sound. They can't
Hmm.
see, they can only hear, and so you got a really good just I don't know. It was a very family oriented film in terms of not like take your small kids to see it, but like the fact that it was about this family that um, experienced the loss of a child. They were in a post apocalyptic world. Um, they're expecting another baby, and so there's sort of all these tension points of what are we going to do when this happens? There's maybe some bitterness between the father and his daughter about the loss of their youngest son, and so it's just I don't know. It plays in a lot of family drama and emotions, but
Hmm.
also just the will to do whatever you can to protect those that you love. And I think in the end, that's what kind of shines through with those first two movies.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I liked about them a lot. And so, I mean, I don't know what were your thoughts on those
I
two?
mean, I think initially going into the first one, I wasn't expecting like going into it and being amazed like that, and I think they did a really good job. Like, I don't think it was really much like we haven't really seen like I guess that type of plot happen before in like I would say like a monster horror movie type deal. So I think they executed it really well, and obviously Frank Kaminsky, John Krasinski. I don't know why I said Frank. John Krasinski.
Right, that's the basketball player.
Yes. John Krasinski, I mean, he's a great actor. And also, I think he directed the film, correct? Or did he write it?
He
I can't
directed
remember.
and
He
wrote
wrote it.
and
Yep.
starred in, yeah,
So, I mean,
all
like,
three.
he did a great job in that. And then just the acting in general and, like, just the story behind it. Like you said, it was almost like you just, like, had, like, an emotional connection, I think, to, like, the family because, like, it almost, like, made you feel like you were a part of it in a way, I feel like. That family and like
Hmm.
going through like what they were going through and it just they did a good job with like the emotions, they did a good job with the writing, they did a good job, the acting was phenomenal. And yeah, I think the first one at least was amazing in that regard. Second one kind of not as great, but it was still, I mean, it was good. Cillian Murphy killed his role. I think I really enjoyed the
Yeah.
fact that they brought him into it. Um, and
Well,
I
and
can't
Emily
remember.
Blunt is Emily Blunt. She could
Yeah,
carry a role. She can
she
carry a
can.
movie
And even
with
the
the
child
best of
actors,
them.
the actors they have, the actor and actress they have playing the daughter and the son, like they did a really good job as well. I mean, even though obviously the actress she doesn't talk because she's deaf, but like I just in general, like you just like their the demeanor they bring and like their facial expressions, like especially like the actress who's deaf. I can't remember her name in the movie,
Yeah,
but like
Millicent. The actress is Millicent. I can't remember her last name, and then Noah Jupe plays
okay,
the brother.
but like not being able to, well, just in general, because obviously they can't really talk, and so like just their facial expressions in general, like I think they did a really good job involving that because like it just I don't know, it just brought a good emotional, like you felt emotional when they were feeling emotional just based off like how their faces looked and like their facial expressions and stuff. So I think that was
Well,
a
I think in general, they in those movies, really in all three of the movies, the the ability that because I think John Krasinski directed. I know he directed the first one, and I think the second one. I know he
yep,
didn't direct the third one, but he wrote. He helped write it.
yep.
Um, but I think what he does so well is conveys emotion and um, tension and
Mm,
in the story through without using words. And I think
yeah.
that's hard to do sometimes.
Oh, very hard. Yeah.
And the fact that there's very little dialogue in the first movie, um, and there's really not a ton in the second either. And even
Mm,
there's a decent bit in the third, but I would say like their ability to convey all that they need to convey in a story with very little dialogue is impressive to me. And I think that's one
Hmm.
of the things about them that's so interesting to watch. Is how do you how do you make an engaging story in movie when your actors and actresses can't actually speak? And I think
Hmm.
that's what they excel so much at. And visually, they're great. The sound quality, it has to be top notch when it's a
Hmm.
sound oriented film, and it
Yep.
just the way they film it just makes you every sound is amplified. It feels like because everything's so quiet, the music and everything really
Hmm.
plays into that. And
Yeah, the music does
um,
a really good job at like building the tension as well, because like that's
yeah,
kind of like, when you get to like the point where you know a Death Angel is going to be possibly making an appearance on the screen and stuff, and they like do a good job at like building that moment up with the music, because it kind of gets you like feeling tense and like almost like anxious, and like your anxiety is like there because they're feeling anxiety as well.
yeah.
So yeah, the music does a really good job at that as well, building
And you got to
tension.
see them in theaters if you can, because the sound
Agreed.
quality is just that much
Agreed.
better on a big screen.
Yep.
But that kind of brings us to the third one, and this one interested me in more ways than one because it's the first one they've done that does not follow any of the main characters from the first two. And
Hmm.
so my question was, how do you carry a film when you have to get people reinvested in new characters? And I think the first thing they do is they hired great actors and
Hmm.
actresses. And I think that was, I mean, Lupita Nyong'o is fantastic. Um, Joseph Quinn has been a rising star the last few years with Stranger
Hmm.
Things, and now he's in this. He's going to be in the Fantastic Four movie.
Yep.
Um,
Going to be in
he's
Gladiator 2 as
phenomenal.
well. So
Yeah, and so they just have so many um, quality actors that um, but I think sort of what we talked about in our last discussion, our San Diego Comic Con discussion, is you have to have people that can execute that vision. And
mm,
the guy that directed this film, he did The
he does a lot
Pig,
of indie
which
films.
yeah, The Pig,
So
which was the Nicolas Cage. I haven't
yep.
seen it. I heard good things about it. There was one other one, but the it's like the director never changed to me. You switch over, you get the same kind of quality in
Mm,
the story in terms of that emotional punch that it brings. Because what I was worried about to a certain degree is that when they shifted over to this one, being in New York City, being so many more of these creatures than there were in the first two,
mm,
that they would try to make it some sort of huge blockbuster style death
mm,
and destruction everywhere, explosions, and
mm,
make it sort of bombastic and sort of bloated.
mm,
But what you get here is what you get in the first two, which is a really simplistic and emotionally impactful story about two people that are really moving in different directions in terms of the way their lives are going when this happens.
mm.
Lupita Nyong'o, she plays the main character, and for the life of me, I can't remember the character's name. Um, but
Lupita's character you're talking about?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
her name was Samira. So for
Samir,
short, they call her Sam, which is actually, I want to
Sam.
bring that up. It's funny to me because the cat's name is Frodo, and then for short, her name is Sam. And they do
That's
a lot of
awesome.
walking around and stuff. So like, I don't know. I think that was a little Easter egg
There
if
may be
I
some symbolism there.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they did it on purpose. Like, there's no way because like Sam,
That is
Frodo.
the quietest cat I've ever seen, too.
Yeah, see, and I want to bring that up too because like that I kind of think was probably not
Yeah,
such a great thing about the movie, but
we'll get to that. Yeah,
yes,
we're about to jump into some nitty gritties, and if you haven't seen it, there will be some spoilers involved.
yes.
You've been warned. If you go past this point, you're on your own fault. Okay, so but yeah, I think what they do so well is um, essentially the premise is Sam's character. She's sick. They don't really specify what she has. You can kind of make your guesses. Could be cancer, could be whatever it is. It's terminal.
I
Essentially, she doesn't have
yeah.
long to live.
I can't remember where I
And
saw it, but I
essentially,
believe that I'm not sure if it was confirmed by like directors or not, but I did see a thing saying that apparently it was cancer. But I
yeah,
don't know if that was confirmed by directors or not, or any of the
that's
cast
what it
members.
appears to be in the film. They just don't
Yeah.
really outright say it.
No.
But essentially, the point is that not only is she dying physically, but she's basically lost the will to live in
Hmm.
other aspects of her life. She just wants to be done with it. And so she's at a hospice. She lives at this hospice service. They take
Hmm.
everyone into town to see a puppet show of sorts. And she agrees to go if they'll stop and get pizza. And we find out
Hmm.
later in the film that the reason she's so intent on getting this pizza is because when she was a girl, she used to go with her dad to this pizza place
Yep.
in New York City, and it was a fond childhood memory. And so she's kind of wanting to go back to the happy moments in her childhood and
Hmm.
um, to maybe get one last good memory before she kind
Hmm.
of gives up on everything.
Yeah, and I think that's another
And
thing they do pretty well with the movie. I think is that they did a good job at like showing like the human emotion of like almost like regret in a way, because like I feel
yeah,
like with her and her dad, obviously she had like a lot of regrets involving. I'm not sure if like they didn't really elaborate on it, but you could just tell with how they would always not bring it up, but like she would talk about it or just whenever they would give like flashback or I wouldn't say flashbacks. It wasn't. I don't think they had a flashback scene, but it just I don't know. It almost like whenever they were going to just go to the pizzeria, it just felt like she was dealing with regret in a way. And so I think they did a good job at portraying that. And
again, it's portraying emotion without
yes,
using words, and they do
exactly.
so well at that.
Mm-hmm.
But as we see when they get into the city before she can get her pizza, it's day one, the point that we see in part two of A Quiet Place at the very beginning of the movie, where the asteroids have fallen, where these creatures are on these asteroids, and now they're attacking the city. They hunt anything that makes noise,
Mm-hmm.
basically, um, and so they have to hole up in this theater, and essentially she's even more hopeless because the world is ending,
Mm-hmm.
and um, but she's like, by gosh, I'm gonna get me some pizza before I give it up. And so she has her cat Frodo with her. They find a way to leave the theater, and she packs her stuff and she leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the rest of the movie is about her trying to reach the pizzeria, but at the same time she's intersecting with Joseph Quinn's character, and I can't remember his character's name. You may have to look that up for me as well.
Eric is his name.
Eric, and he's sort of, whereas Sam's character is very much a bold and risk taking person. I mean, she walks right out in the middle of the street knowing these, flesh eating monsters are out there ready to kill
Mm-hmm.
her. Um, she does. That's the kind of character she is, and she meets Eric, who's looks more like he works an office job. He's more
Mm-hmm.
timid. He's scared of his own shadow, maybe a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and but he's like, I don't want to die. He has this just relentless will to live, and ironically, he sees the strong will in her, that courageousness,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where he wants to stick with her. He doesn't want to. He wants to follow her around because he knows, hey, this girl knows what's up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rest of the movie is all about him almost inadvertently teaching her, giving and helping her to have the will to live again. Not physically because she knows she's dying, but just from
Mm-hmm.
a maybe a mental, emotional point of, I want to continue to get the most out of life. And I think that's really where the story's at its strongest, is when
Agreed.
you see them, connecting and sort of getting out these emotions and things that, you know, the struggles that they have, and she teaches him how to be brave and courageous and really take risks in order to help those around him. And I think you see that in a lot of ways where he goes out to get her medicine. He rescues the cat
Yep.
from the construction area. And it's like you just see this really great interaction between these two characters where they're both teaching each other things that are vital to their survival
Yep.
and also vital to them and their humanity. And I think that's where the movie is at its strongest, and
Agreed.
what all of these movies do a great job of.
Agreed. Also, I know like when I was like reading reviews on the movie and stuff, a lot of people were kind of complaining about the whole like I guess the plot in a way that like the fact that she was just going to Harlem to basically get a sliced pizza, and that was kind of like the whole main premise. But all in all, like I don't
It's
think that's a bad premise necessarily because like
oversimplified, but
yes, it is oversimplified, agreed. But I just don't like see how like that was necessarily a bad like plot line because like at the end of the day, again, she is dying. So like if I'm in this situation, if I'm also dying as well, I'm gonna probably go do something that like was like a core memory of mine that like I enjoyed doing as a kid or something like that, just to like enjoy what's happening. Like 'cause everything's, you know, falling apart around me. So like at that point, like I'm gonna do something that gives me joy before I, you know, pass away.
well,
It's
she's
like
like,
that's
I'm either gonna die sick in my bed, or
yeah,
I'm gonna die being killed by one of these creatures. But if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die doing what I want to do. And I think that's
exactly.
kind of the
And
point of that. And whereas Eric's character is like, you want to go get pizza, I want to get to the coast, but you're my best chance to stay alive.
mhm,
And so that kind of breeds um, that relationship to the point where um, she is able to help him, you know, to be more like I talked about, more brave, but also um, in the end, he's willing to risk his own life where he wouldn't have done that before.
mhm,
Um, but I think it is oversimplifying because I think when they tie that to that emotional connection of, you know, when you look, because really it's a story about someone who's given up on life and is finding the will to live, and then on
mhm,
the flip side, someone that wants to live but isn't capable on their own of figuring out how to do it. And so I think that it's the two contrasting characters coming together to maybe accomplish things they didn't think they were trying to accomplish. And
mhm,
I think the ending was perfect, and it was
mhm,
just like it reminded me of the ending of the first movie,
yep,
where the main character has to sacrifice themselves
mhm,
to help the other people survive. And I think I don't know. I think just the way they do it, the way they execute it, the way it ends, like the very last scene with her in the street, was
phenomenal.
perfect.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah, and I think the
and
way they ended her character as well, like I kind of saw it coming. Like I figured she was probably going to end up probably sacrificing herself, kind of like John Krasinski's character did, the dad in the first one. But
yeah,
like I was okay with that, like knowing that like that was probably going to happen because like the way they executed it was good. They did a great job with it, even though I
hmm
again had that idea in the back of my head that that was going to happen. They did a good job at executing it, and like yeah,
yeah,
just the music with
they
her.
make you.
Go ahead, sorry. Good.
No, they make it emotionally impactful.
It
I think
does.
that's
Yeah.
yeah,
And like the whole like scene where she just has the headphones in with the speaker and she's just walking down the street just enjoying the music and then she's just like, all right, well, I think I've had enough and just kind of, you know, takes the headphones out and then that's just how they end it. And like the song they decided to choose as well was a great song, I think. As well. That was good. And yeah, I just
and just how the creature drops down to the exact beat of the
yeah,
music, and it just
literally
like
yeah, on
when it
beat as
ends right
well.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty.
So
Yeah,
also back to the
it
whole
was
cat thing. Kind of what we were
your
talking about
one
earlier.
gripe for the movie.
Yeah, well, I think that was like I think my only two I think big major things that like I think they could have probably done better was maybe explaining more about like the Death Angels because like we didn't really get much of like a whole. I feel like well, I mean we did, but also like I don't know. I feel like they could have gone more in depth on it. Like obviously we kind of figured out. I guess we sort of figured out that like they aren't just killing people for food. They have these what I guess those kind of like eggs almost like during the construction scene where Joseph Quinn's character goes to get medicine. He obviously runs upon almost like a I don't even know like what it was
Like
necessarily.
a
It's
nest, like a
a nest of
food
some sort,
source
like
of
for
some kind.
food.
Yeah,
Yeah. So like
yeah.
that was I'm glad that they did that. They kind of like went in more depth on like, okay, well these death angels obviously aren't killing for food. They're just basically almost like killing to like I would say like
It's
maybe try to make Earth.
territorial almost.
Yeah, almost like they're
Yeah,
trying to just basically make Earth their own planet at that point. So they're just killing off all the old, the people that used to live there type deal. But I did like that, but I
Well,
kind
and
of
they
wish they,
physically, I think what we've noticed is there's certain sounds that like physically injure them. And so I
Mhm.
think they just kill anything that's too noisy almost.
Yeah, that's very fair as well. That's, yeah. But yeah, back to the cat thing though. Like I think that's another a little pet peeve. I mean I own a cat, and that little stupid turd right there would end up getting me killed within the first like couple minutes probably. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
and like granted, like I don't know how other people's cats are, but like I've met other cats as well, and they're nothing like the Frodo was in the movie. So I mean I give that cat props. I mean he's great at surviving, but like in reality, I don't think that probably would happen. That cat would have either ran and just hid somewhere, or probably would have been screeching, meowing, and stuff, and ended up getting her
Well, they
killed.
could have made a throwaway comment because, like, we had a cat. You probably remember the cat we had. It's an orange cat, but like he
Yeah,
hardly ever made a sound. Um, and he, it was one of those things where you could have had a throwaway line. It was like, yeah, that she never makes a sound. She's always quiet,
yeah,
and that would have just been a way to, or he's always quiet, and that would have made a way to kind of boot away. But the only thing they do is like when she walks into her room at the very beginning, the cat kind of goes meow, and she goes quiet, and then he
mm,
kind of quits making a noise. And
yeah,
they're doing that to kind of play off the fact that they're going to have to not be making any noise and things like that. And it's kind of a minor thing for me. It's like, yeah, that would never happen. That cat would freak and start,
yeah.
squealing and stuff. But it's not a big deal to me. It's not the end of the
No,
world. It's really the only thing where you're kind of like, yeah, that's not a thing.
no, agreed. And I don't think it didn't ruin the movie for me. I was just more or less was like, oh well, I don't really think that's how exactly that would happen, but it wasn't like a make or break it for me. I still enjoyed the movie, but that was just like a
Yeah.
little small pet peeve. But
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, we'd highly recommend it. I think in some ways it's probably better than part two. Um, you can't beat the first one.
no,
Um,
agreed.
but I think this one is well worth going to see. Um, really character centric movie, emotionally impactful movie like the first two are, and I think we can't recommend it enough. And probably going to be one of the more underrated movies this year.
Mhm.
Um, but we would definitely recommend that y'all get out and watch this because I think it's definitely a theater worthy kind of movie.
Yep, agreed. It's a solid movie.